Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are back with another installment of my window shopping series. So if you're new here, basically this video is just a fun, chill, chatty video where I talk about nail polishes that I think are beautiful, but I won't be adding to my collection for one reason or another. Usually it's because I feel like I already have something similar. And yeah, this is just a great way to admire all the pretty releases that are coming out without feeling like we need to add them to our collections. So if you've seen my previous window shopping videos, those were kind of themed around specific finishes like neons or shimmers, but this video is going to be talking about fall releases, and I'm so excited because I think fall is the best time for nail polish. So without further ado, let's get into window shopping. So first up, I want to talk about some mainstream brands because I don't really review them on my channel anymore, but I still think they can be really, really pretty, even if they are kind of boring compared to indie releases. But I wanted to start with Essie's Punk at Heart collection, and I remember falling in love just with the whole lineup, but no surprise, the ones that stood out to me are obviously the pink, Loud and Proud. I feel like I probably have something like this, though I can't think of a dupe right off the top of my head, but it's just another like mid-tone pink that I don't need. But the two that I did consider picking up were Punk at Heart, which was this like really dark teal kind of color, and Leather Weather, which is a really dark eggplant purple sort of shade. I just love a good, deep, dark, vampy, moody color for fall, and I always talk about like loving creams for fall, even though this year in my fall favorites video, I only shared like 3 creams. So maybe that's another reason that I didn't feel super compelled to get them. But honestly, after seeing a couple more swatches of them, especially Leather Weather being like this really, really deep purple, it's just one of those shades that is so dark it looks black in most lighting. And I already have OPI's Linkin Park After Dark, which I know is like a cult classic, but I just rarely wear that one because it's just so dark and I feel like you can hardly tell that it's purple. So I feel like Leather Weather would end up looking very similar to that one. I don't think I've seen direct comparisons for that, so I don't think they would be like dupes exactly, but they're both like so dark it's gonna be hard to tell. If anything, it's Punk at Heart that I think would have the better chance of making it into my collection because it just seems like a more unique shade of blue, where I know I just called it like a teal, but I think the official description doesn't really call it a teal. And I remember seeing Nicole's video on it and she's like, it's not a teal, but there's like a drop of green in there. I don't know if that would make it like a peacock blue or something, but either way, it's just like this really beautiful shade of blue. And again, I don't think I have anything quite like it where it's like a dead-on dupe but it's like a few shades lighter or something, but I feel like I just never really gravitate towards wearing those shades either, or I'll use them in like nail art mainly. So it's one of those shades that unfortunately I feel like I only need one of in my collection and then I'm pretty satisfied with it. I feel like I've learned with a lot of blue polishes, I love looking at them, like they're just so beautiful, but I don't really end up wearing them all too often, and that's kind of concerning because I feel like I have a lot of blues in my collection. Then OPI released their Metallic Mega Mix collection, which basically featured all metallic or shimmer type of finishes, which definitely was interesting because I feel like OPI always does like creams in the fall, or like they include some creams and they're always amazing. So to see them completely like exclude creams from this release was so interesting. Initially when I saw the collection, because it was like the middle of summer, I didn't really care for it that much, but there were a few standouts. I mean, I do think there are like a lot of pretty shades in it in general, but the standouts for me are Liquid Fire and Millennium Mocha. Liquid Fire, I think, is self-explanatory. It is just one of those beautiful, rich fall, like red-orange kind of shades. I love the metallic kind of finish where that gold shimmer just gives it like this really warm glow. I don't think I have a shade quite like that one exactly. Maybe the closest one is Hollow Taco's I'm Rover It, which I just shared in my fall favorites video. So you can see I'm just like craving those kinds of shades, but I think I'm Rover It is a little bit darker, maybe not as bright red, and it also has these like hollow flakies in it. So between the two, I kind of do like I'm Rover It a little bit more. Then for Millennium Mocha, oh my god, she is so beautiful. Again, if you watched my fall favorites video, you've heard me talk about just like loving any kind of warm brown or brick kind of shade. They are just some of my favorites for this time of year. It is described as a metallic mocha, but from the swatches I've seen, it definitely leans a lot more red. And if I remember correctly, Nicole had also mentioned that in her video, that she was almost disappointed in that shade because it looks more brown in the bottle than it does on the nail. But I loved how it looked on the nail. It is just so up my alley. Absolutely gorgeous, giving all those warm and cozy fall vibes. I think the closest one that I have to that is Olive Ave's Pigment, which is this coppery brown metallic shade, but that one's a little too light and almost like orangey maybe. There is also Sumac from Olive Ave, which I think might be a little bit darker, but it's also more like of a true reddish burgundy, not as brown leaning. So honestly, I think Millennium Mocha might be kind of like an in-between of those Olive Ave shades, and it's just so hard to choose favorites between them. Like part of me would want to just add Millennium Mocha to my collection just to have like a nice little gradient, but I feel like I should be satisfied having at least like both ends of the spectrum. Maybe I could try to be creative and sort of like mix both of them to sort of recreate Millennium Mocha that way. But yeah, that's another one that I'm just like, oh, it is so beautiful. Now moving on to indies, I had to talk about Lurid's An Unshakable Sense of Foreboding Part 2, because I think the Part 1 collection was like the Halloween Advent type of box. So those are technically all like mysteries, but Part 2 is what she's been doing these like sneak peeks for, or I guess like color reveals, not really sneak peeks. But either way, you might be familiar with Lurid. I definitely have shared them a couple of times when I've done like my indie hauls where I just pick up like a couple of shades here and there. And for this collection, I definitely thought it was interesting overall. Like I like the mix of dark and light shades. I think it's just a cool contrast. There were only 3 real standouts for me though, which I think, you know, isn't surprising. I feel like I just know what I like, and then I gravitate towards those same kind of shades over and over again. So to absolutely no one's surprise, the first one of those is Eerie Glow. It's this super delicate baby pink kind of base that has this glowy green shimmer. You guys know I just love polishes like that. It is just so up my alley, but I'm not going to be getting this one. Like I swear I won't be, because I feel like I already have a dupe for it, and that's from Bee's Knees Lacquer called Better Than No Heart at All, which if I remember correctly was either like a PPU or an HHC shade. So it's not one you can get now. So if you were looking for that Bee's Knees, I would say that this Lurid is probably a really close alternative. Maybe the base colors are like a little bit different, or the color shift in the shimmer is a little different, but from the swatches I've seen, I'm like, I feel like this could pass as a dupe, you know? I did also really love the Namesake from the collection, but it did immediately remind me of a couple of shades. The first one was Cracked Polish's Fight, which actually is a lot darker now that I think about it. That one has this like blackened teal base with this really pretty teal shifting shimmer. So maybe the darker, moodier version of that Lurid shade. But if anything, I think the closer one is from What's Up Nails called Can't Unsee. I think that came out in either last year's winter collection or fall, something like that, but I think color-wise that's probably even closer, and that one is also a reflective glitter. So my best guess is that that one is like the most similar to being a dupe, if it's not like an exact dead-on one. But again, that's kind of one of those shades that I feel satisfied only having one of in my collection. Next, I want to chat about Bee's Knees Lacquer because I just watched Caitlin's video on their new Beetlejuice collection, and I'm just like, oh my god, they are so pretty. I'm sure you guys know I'm a big fan of glowy shimmers, and the collection overall I think was really gorgeous. But again, I only had like one or two standouts to me that I'm like, ooh, I'm so tempted by these. I'm sure you already know, but the first one that I'm thinking of is It's Showtime, which is this super glowy blue micro flaky that in the bottle looks like it has a purple base, but it is incredibly sheer, where if I remember correctly, Caitlin did like 4 coats and you can just barely see a whisper of that base color. So personally, I feel like that's one of those shades that is just better advertised as a topper. It honestly kind of reminded me of Lumen's Glass Frog because that kind of had a similar effect where it has this like purple tinted base, but the blue shimmer is like, you know, so glowy, but then once you put it on, it's a little underwhelming because of how sheer it is. Like, you really need to build it up, and it's beautiful like in the end, but I feel like I can't, out of principle, get a polish that I know is gonna require 4 coats. And it's such a shame because it is so beautiful. Like, again, bringing up Glass Frog, I thought maybe that's a dupe for it, or even something like Alchemy's Champ, which is another micro blue shimmer sort of topper. I basically thought I had dupes with like those, but seeing the actual colors, I'm like, I think Champ and Glass Frog are a little bit lighter, more on the aqua side, and this Bee's Knees is a little bit deeper, almost has like a cobalt blue kind of shimmer, and I really love that. Part of me is tempted to have that because I'm like, okay, well, I have 2 aqua shimmers, but not like a cobalt blue shimmer, so it's different enough. But realistically, I don't wear a lot of like shimmer toppers. I would just prefer wearing it on its own, but I don't want to do the 4 coats, so I won't be getting it, but I'm definitely gonna be thinking about it for the foreseeable future. And the other polish that I was eyeing was Beetlejuice, which might be a surprise to you because I'm not known for like loving green polishes, but that lime green is just so up my alley. I love bright lime greens like that, and I especially love them when they have like a golden copper kind of shimmer. I feel like a lot of greens usually come with like a pink shimmer, and while I love pink, I don't always love that combination. I think it was just in my last video where I was talking about how I initially had some polishes on like my wish list from Bee's Knees from the Daughters of the Moon Goddess collection, and one of them was like a green kind of seafoamy base that sort of had like a pink shimmer, and I did end up getting it, and I think it's beautiful, but seeing it in comparison to Beetlejuice, I just love the color combination of Beetlejuice more. But I feel like that one kind of has the same issue as the other Bee's Knees. That's just, they're so sheer, and that's coming from someone who like generally likes sheer polishes. Like, I'm not opposed to doing 3 coats because I feel like a lot of shimmers just look better with a 3rd coat as opposed to only doing 2. Usually having a slightly sheerer base allows those like iridescent flakies or shimmers to just really glow. So, you know, building it up in 3 isn't that big of a deal, but I feel like some of Bee's Knees polishes are just more sheer than others. So yeah, it is a bit unfortunate that the 2 that I'm interested in are on the way more sheer side, because if they were just a bit more pigmented and looked closer to like what you see in the bottle in 2 or 3 coats, I would be all over them. I did also want to mention 2 others from that collection because they just like reminded me of dupes, and the first one was My Whole Life is a Dark Room, which is this like moody kind of blue grayish color with this glowing blue shimmer. I immediately thought of Mooncat's Misery is my favorite color. I think if anything, Mooncat's is a little bit more blue and Bee's Knees is more purple, but depending on the lighting, I feel like they could just pass because they were just so incredibly similar. So if you don't happen to have the Mooncat one, if anything, I think the Bee's Knees is a better option because I'm pretty sure Bee's Knees is going to be doing a 20% off sale when the pre-order goes live for this collection. And they have bigger bottles where they're 15 milliliters compared to Mooncat's being 12 milliliters. So you're definitely going to get a better deal with Bee's Knees, and that one doesn't look nearly as sheer as the other one. So I think that one might be worth it if you don't already have the Mooncat. And the other polish that I wanted to talk about was Proof of the Afterlife, I think. That one immediately reminded me of like Cirque's Coronation or just any other kind of purple with like a reddish coppery shimmer. At least when it comes to Coronation. Coronation is a lot more sparkly, so the Bee's Knees is like the light version of that. But again, when you factor in like the price and the size of the bottle, it might just be worth getting the Bee's Knees and then layering like a hollow topper over that. Then I wanted to talk about KBShimmer's fall collection because KBShimmer is a brand that I unfortunately don't get to review on my channel all too often, but they release some really beautiful collections. They only just recently announced their fall collection this year, and unfortunately, like at first glance, I wasn't super into it. Maybe that's not totally fair to say because there's only like a limited number of swatches that I've seen of these shades. Obviously, that's not to say that like the swatchers or even like the polishes themselves are bad by any means, but they just like, I don't know, they just didn't stand out to me in a way where I feel like, oh, I would really love to have those in my collection, if that makes sense. I think one of the most unique ones was Dead Ringer because it has this like brown sort of taupey base with this really pretty glowy blue to green sort of shifting shimmer. I feel like it's just a color combination that I haven't seen that often. Definitely not one that I have in my collection, so it would be like a good addition because I just don't have that kind of color, but I can recognize it's not a color that I would really reach for all too often. Like I could see it working for a Halloween mani or something specifically, but other than that, I probably wouldn't be reaching for it. So it just doesn't feel worth it to add it to my collection. The other one that I thought was interesting was called Spectral Feeling, which was one of the magnetics. And that one was so weird because I feel like it was described as having a blue purpley base, but I just thought it was black. So it's again one of those colors that's so dark it looks black, but it is filled with this really intense glowy shimmer and this micro flaky kind of particle. So I do appreciate that, and it's probably the magnetic shimmer I think that just is really eye-catching because it just looks to be like a certain shade of violet that we don't normally see, or at least that I don't see often compared to the other like blue shimmers or purple shimmers in the magnetics that I do own. I guess I would have to double check though, because maybe Cirque does have something along those lines because they have a couple of like multi-chrome magnetics. But honestly, because of the color shift, which I do like, it just reminded me of a Rogue lacquer that I picked up from Polish Pickup a few months ago. So I thought, well, I could probably just layer that over black and get like an even more intense glow and color shift. So yeah, unfortunately, it seems like I will be skipping KBShimmer entirely this season, which is definitely a shame because I feel like I was just waiting for them to release their fall collection. The past ones this year were all just so gorgeous. But again, I have also noticed that with KBShimmer, where even though like the collection itself is super beautiful, I'm only ever really drawn towards like one or two polishes. And lastly, I have to talk about Sassy Sauce polish because I literally just finished watching a video from Polish with Ray going over the Halloween trio that's releasing soon, and the first two polishes are cool. If anything, it just clicked that the second polish, I think Calling All Cauldrons, is pretty similar to the one from KBShimmer I was just talking about called Dead Ringer, where it's like this brownish taupey base that has this like blue to green shifting shimmer. That is kind of funny to see because I was just saying like, oh, I've never seen this color combination before, and then now we're getting two within like weeks from each other. But obviously the star of that trio is Wicked Sorcery, which is this magnetic, and it just blew my mind. If I remember correctly, that one was described as like a black to red multi-chrome magnetic, and black to red multi-chromes are like so iconic. I know so many of you are familiar with Island P's Eclipse, which you may be surprised to hear that I actually don't have because it came out when I was just not really into multi-chromes. But yeah, so the Sassy sauce being this like black to red multi-chrome, it is just so stunning. And I especially love that the shimmer kind of has this like grayish purple color in more like direct lighting, and then it shifts to red from there, and then like, you know, copper and gold and green in like very extreme angles. It just looks so cool, so witchy, perfect for like Halloween and fall in general. And I know earlier in the video I was saying like I don't want to fall into the trap of, you know, buying these Halloween specific shades. Like if you watched my polish pickup video for this month, there were a lot of great shades that were like, oh yes, it's Halloween in a bottle. I can appreciate that, but I just can't add it to my collection because I'm not going to be reaching for it that often. But there is something about this magnetic that I'm like, I need it. Like I know this, it's going beyond now like the window shopping, it's going to actually be shopping, but it's just one polish out of like however many I talked about today. So I feel like it's not that bad, you know? The only problem now is that it's only one polish that I want to get from Sassy Sauce, and you know that I'm always complaining about paying for shipping for like one polish. So I am going to be browsing their site just to see if there's like a second polish that I might want to add. Pretty sure there are like other polishes that have caught my eye from them before, but similar to like other videos where I'm talking about like, you know, this whole window shopping thing, it's like, oh, this one I really like, but it's because it reminds me of something I already have. So I'm not trying to dupe myself, but we will see. If I only pay shipping for the one, fine, I think it's worth it. So that wraps up the fall edition of my window shopping video. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of the brands or polishes that I mentioned. I'd also love to know what other releases you've been excited over, because like I've said so many times, I feel like fall is just the best season for nail polish. I feel like I've just been so excited for the fall releases that we've seen. Obviously the ones that I've reviewed already, like Island P or Holo Taco, and I'm so excited to be sharing some upcoming ones in the future. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight some other releases that have come out because they're just super gorgeous and worth talking about. So again, I'd love to know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.